Capricorn, before we begin, I need you to take a breath, because what I'm about to tell you is not ordinary. What if I told you that the next chapter of your life has already been written in gold, that something rare, something ancient, something heaven approved is finally moving toward you, right now? A shift so powerful it won't just surprise the world. It will shock the people who thought they knew your limits. They never saw the nights you whispered prayers no one else could hear. They never felt the weight behind your quiet strength. But heaven did. And now, the vault is opening. Not by luck, not by chance, but by divine intention. If your spirit feels this, type, "I received this breakthrough" in the comments to activate your alignment. Because Capricorn, what's coming next isn't just wealth. It's the beginning of a story your entire bloodline will remember. Let me take you into it. Capricorn, I want you to sit with this for a moment. Let it settle in your chest, that quiet knowing, that small pulse of recognition that always rises when truth brushes against your spirit. Because this isn't noise, this isn't fantasy. There is a reason your life has felt heavier than most, more demanding, more sacred, even when no one around you could understand it. You weren't being punished, you were being prepared. And somewhere along the way, maybe you forgot that. Maybe you got used to carrying everything alone, used to holding your breath through seasons where nothing made sense, where the silence felt louder than any answer you wished for. Yet, even in those silent years, something was writing itself around you, something patient, something wise, something golden. You see, destiny doesn't always arrive with thunder. Sometimes it comes softly, like a hand at your back, guiding you even when you think you're standing still. And I know you've had moments when you wondered why the road had to stretch this long, why you had to be the strong one, why you were the one chosen to carry both the weight and the possibility of a whole family line. But look at you, still here, still rising in ways you don't even notice, still moving toward a future your ancestors never had a chance to walk into. That alone says something. It tells me there's a depth in you that didn't come from easy days. It came from nights you weren't sure you would make it through, yet you did. It came from the quiet discipline of choosing hope, over and over, even when the world gave you every reason not to. And that's why this moment is different. This shift isn't random. It's responding to every step you took when the ground was shaking beneath you. It's answering every silent prayer you whispered into the dark, thinking no one heard. I know you've been carrying questions. Is it really my time? Is this real? Is something finally turning for me? Let yourself breathe here. Let yourself imagine the possibility of yes. Because life has a way of opening right when you stop chasing explanations and start listening to the quiet rhythm inside your own spirit. Feel that? That soft pull, that sense that something is beginning to rearrange itself around your name. Not loudly, not suddenly, but unmistakably. It's almost like standing at the edge of a sunrise you didn't expect, where light begins to find you before you even turn toward it, where warmth touches your skin before you've had time to understand what's happening. That's where you are now. Right at the threshold where the story shifts, where what was written in gold begins to reveal itself in your real, physical life, where what you carried in silence finally starts to make sense. And as we move forward, I want you to hold one truth close. Nothing is being taken from you. Something is being delivered to you, and it carries your name, your timing, your inheritance. Stay with me, Capricorn. There's something I need to show you, and it's been waiting for a very long time. Capricorn, there is something I need you to hear in the quiet, something I want to say slowly so your heart has time to recognize the shape of it. People often believe they understand you because they see the surface of your life, the calm expression, the steady walk, the way you hold everything together as if it weighs nothing at all. They don't know that you learn to do that out of survival, out of love, out of necessity. And sometimes even the people closest to you forget that strength has a cost. They forget that stillness can hide storms. They forget that responsibility feels different when it sits on your shoulders day after day. But you never forget. You feel every inch of it, every pressure, every promise you made to yourself in the dark. You've carried so much without applause. You've helped others without letting them see your own empty hands. You've shown up for people who never asked how you were holding up. And you did it quietly, because that's who you are. I wonder how many nights you sat awake, not because you were weak, but because you were tired of being strong. How many times your chest ached from holding words you never said out loud. How often you whispered prayers into a pillow so no one would hear the crack in your voice. It's strange how the world can misread a heart like yours. How they can look at someone who has been fighting alone for years and assume you're unshakable, as if you were made from steel instead of a soul that feels everything deeply. And maybe that's why they will be so shocked by what's coming, because they have never seen the weight behind your silence. They have never seen how hard you had to work just to stay standing. They never saw you fold your pain into quiet corners so it wouldn't spill over onto anyone else. They saw the calm, but heaven saw the truth. Heaven saw the nights you held yourself together by a thread. Heaven saw the moments you kept loving even when you felt unseen. Heaven saw the discipline, the sacrifice, the courage it took to keep choosing the higher path when the lower one would have been easier. And that is why the blessing isn't small, why it can't be subtle, why it has to arrive in a way no one can deny. Your life has been a long conversation with the unseen, a series of quiet offerings the world never witnessed, and every one of them was accounted for, stored, protected, waiting for the right time to unfold. So if your family seems surprised, it's only because they never saw the backstage of your becoming. They didn't see the creation of the strength you carry now. But, you always knew that nothing you endured was wasted. And as we move forward, I want you to feel something gentle rising inside you, not pride, not fear. Just a soft awareness that your story is starting to reveal why it had to be written this way. Stay close. There is more your heart has been waiting to hear. Capricorn, it's always been a little too easy for people to misunderstand you. They look at the calm on your face and mistake it for distance. They see the way you move with intention and assume you're cold. They watch you choose the long path and whisper that you're slow, but they never stop to wonder why you walk the way you do, why you hold your silence the way someone holds a flame in the wind, why your steps are deliberate, steady, patient. You've been carrying a depth they've never had to touch, and sometimes depth scares people who only know the surface of themselves. So, they call you serious. They call you unambitious. They call you things that fit their understanding, not your truth. But you and I both know something they don't. You weren't moving slowly. You were listening. You were obeying the rhythm of a future that wasn't ready to be revealed yet. You were walking in a timing that didn't belong to this world. And if they couldn't see that, it's only because they've never had to build a life from the inside out, never had to rise without noise, never had to sacrifice comfort for purpose, never had to become someone strong enough to carry blessings without losing their soul. Sometimes I think the world forgets what real growth looks like. It isn't flashy, it isn't loud, it doesn't announce itself with fireworks. It happens in the small decisions you make every day, the ones no one notices, the ones no one praises. And that's why they've underestimated you for so long. Not because you are small, but because your growth has been sacred, protected, hidden from the eyes that wouldn't have understood it anyway. If someone had told you years ago that your silence was actually preparation, would you have believed them? If someone had whispered that your patience was shaping you for something only God could orchestrate, could you have trusted it? Maybe not. Because when you're in the middle of becoming, you don't always recognize what you're becoming. You just feel the stretch, the pull, the ache of being reshaped for a life that seems too big to imagine. But look at you now. All the things they mocked, all the things they dismissed, all the things they couldn't see the purpose of. They are about to become the very reasons you rise. It's almost poetic, isn't it? How the same qualities they judged will be the ones that carry you into a season they never saw coming. How the same patience they laughed at will be the reason you stand exactly where you're meant to stand. And as the story shifts around you, try to notice the quiet sense of recognition forming in your spirit. The feeling that maybe, just maybe, none of this was a delay, none of it was punishment, it was placement, positioning, preparation in its purest form. Let that settle in you for a moment, because as this truth takes shape, something else begins to unfold with it. Something you've been sensing without having the words for. Capricorn, if you could see what I see when I look at your journey, you would understand why heaven has been holding something so precious with your name on it. Not withholding, just waiting. Waiting for the moment your hands were steady enough to receive it without shaking under the weight. There is a kind of treasure that doesn't glitter on the surface. It grows quietly in the dark. It expands in moments when the world isn't watching. It forms inside you long before it ever forms around you. And you've been building this vault without even realizing it. Every time you chose peace when anger felt easier. Every time you stayed kind in a world that rewarded cruelty. Every time you kept showing up with a tired heart. Something in the unseen world took note. Not in the way people take note, not with applause or spotlight, but with a gentle knowing, like a seed acknowledging the rain that will one day break it open. You've lived so much of your life in that invisible space, giving without asking for anything in return, loving without expecting recognition, growing without needing anyone to praise the roots you were stretching deeper and deeper until they touched something sacred. And because of that, because your goodness wasn't a performance, because your strength wasn't for show, a different kind of wealth began gathering around your spirit, not loud, not rushed, just steady, like a tide that always knew it would reach the shore eventually. I know sometimes you wondered if your softness made you vulnerable, if your patience made you naive, if your quiet loyalty went unnoticed. But Capricorn, nothing about you went unnoticed, not by heaven, not by the forces that have been shaping your life from a place far beyond anything human eyes could measure. The world thought your silence meant stillness, but silence is where your power learned to breathe, where your wisdom learned to walk, where your heart built the strength to hold blessings without losing itself in the noise. And that is why the vault opens now, not as a surprise, but as a fulfillment, as the natural outcome of the character you forged in seasons that felt endless. There is a beauty in that, a soft unfolding that doesn't demand attention, but draws it anyway. People will look at you and think, the blessing came suddenly. They won't realize it was forming, with every quiet choice you made to stay kind, to stay steady, to stay true to something deeper than circumstance. You didn't grow into this moment by accident. You grew into it inch by inch, moment by moment, carrying light you didn't even know you were shaping. And as I say this, I can feel something shifting around your story, as if the vault itself is beginning to breathe, ready to reveal what has been waiting for you all along. Stay with me, Capricorn. There's something rising now, and it carries the echo of every step that brought you here. Capricorn. There is a moment in every life when the world goes quiet, a moment so still you can almost hear your own spirit speaking back to you. I know you've had nights like that, nights when the room felt too small for everything you were carrying, nights when you tried to breathe through shadows no one else could see. And yet, you stayed. You stayed with yourself when walking away would have been easier. You stayed with hope even when hope felt like a stranger. You stayed with the belief that something, somewhere, would eventually shift. I want you to remember that night, not the details, not the date, just the feeling, that soft breaking inside your chest, the kind that doesn't destroy you, but empties just enough space for the light to come in. Maybe you were sitting on the edge of your bed, staring at the floor like it was the only thing holding you together. Maybe you were lying there with your eyes open in the dark, thinking everything in you had reached the end of what it could carry. Maybe you whispered a prayer, the kind that comes from a place too deep for language. Not a request, not a demand, just a quiet plea for strength, a small offering from a tired heart. What you didn't know in that moment was that something in the unseen shifted with you. Not because you were perfect, not because you were fearless, but because you were honest. Because for the first time in a long time, you let yourself fall into the arms of something bigger than your pain. There is a kind of surrender that isn't defeat. It's recognition, a knowing that you can't carry the world alone anymore, a willingness to let life hold part of your weight. And that night, Capricorn, you did exactly that. You thought you were breaking. Heaven thought you were opening, and it was in that opening that the decision was made, not by luck, not by chance, but by a timing that had been waiting for your heart to soften just enough to receive what strength alone could never grasp. People imagine miracles arriving with thunder, but yours began in the quiet. In the moment you stopped pretending you were made of stone and allowed your soul to breathe. That was the night the path shifted beneath your feet. The night a new current began pulling you toward a life you weren't ready to claim, but were finally ready to receive. And even now, when you think back on it, you can feel something about that night that still follows you. A sense that it marked you, changed you, prepared you. Let that awareness settle, because what rose from that moment is leading you into a story that no longer asks you to survive it, but to step into it. Come closer, Capricorn. There is more unfolding than you realize. Capricorn. I wish you could see the way your story looks from a distance, how the lines of your life curve in places you thought were breaking points. Yet somehow, they form a path that leads upward. Not quickly, not loudly, but unmistakably upward. People talk about legacy like it's something handed down in a will. But you and I both know some legacies are born in silence. In the quiet decision to stop repeating the pain you grew up in. In the soft but steady refusal to pass your heartache forward. In those moments where you looked at the patterns around you and whispered to yourself, "It ends with me," and you meant it. Even when you didn't know how to live it yet. There has always been something different about the way you move through the world. A heaviness, yes, but also a kind of responsibility that didn't come from outside pressure. It came from your spirit recognizing a calling long before your mind had language for it. You weren't just trying to survive your life. You were trying to build one, not only for yourself, but for the people who will one day come after you. The ones who will never have to carry the weight you carried because you chose to lift it. There is a quiet bravery in that, a kind of strength that never announces itself, a strength that simply does the work even when the world is too distracted to notice. I wonder if you've ever stopped to think about how powerful that is, to be the one who breaks what broke everyone before you, to be the one who steps out of the shadow so the next generation won't have to grow up in the dark. That is not small. That is not accidental. That is the work of someone chosen. And maybe no one told you that before. Maybe you've spent so much of your life just trying to get through the day that you never paused long enough to realize the ripple you were creating. How every hard choice you made, every act of restraint, every moment of patience, every time you chose growth instead of repeating old wounds, shifted your family line by degrees. Until one day, it wasn't the same line anymore. Sometimes I think destiny watches us the way a gardener watches soil, waiting for the moment it knows something new has taken root. And Capricorn, something has taken root in you, something strong enough to become a beginning instead of another ending. You were never just receiving a blessing, you were becoming one, a living doorway through which your entire bloodline can rise. A reminder that change doesn't always arrive as a miracle. Sometimes it arrives disguised as a single person choosing not to give up. So, breathe here for a moment. Let that truth settle into the places that have felt tired for too long. Because what's forming around you now, it isn't only for you, it's for everyone who will one day be grateful you existed. And as that realization expands inside you, something else begins to stir. Something that's been moving in your direction for a very long time. Capricorn, there is something almost mystical about the way certain people enter our lives. Not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly. Like a door you didn't realize was unlocked until a warm breeze slips through the opening. And I know you've felt it before. That sense that someone is approaching long before they arrive. A shift in the air, a soft awareness in your chest. As if your spirit recognizes footsteps your mind hasn't met yet. This person, the one moving toward your life now, they're not coming to take anything from you. They're coming because something about your journey calls to them. As if their path has been gently woven into yours by hands far more patient, far more knowing than your own. You might not notice them at first, not because they're hidden, but because they won't arrive with noise. They come with a quiet kind of clarity, the kind that feels like a light turning on inside your bones, a calm that settles over you without asking permission. What they bring isn't pressure, it's presence, a steadying presence that reminds you you're not meant to walk the next stretch of your life alone. It's strange, isn't it? How one conversation, one honest moment, one simple connection can feel like a key fitting into a lock that has been waiting years to open. And when they speak, not their words, but the way your spirit responds, that is what tells you this person was assigned, not accidental. You'll know them by the quiet peace they leave behind after they walk out of the room, by how your mind doesn't race around them, by how your heart doesn't armor itself the way it usually does, by how your whole being seems to exhale, finally. Some connections don't ignite with fire, they unfold with understanding. They feel like someone remembering something about you that you didn't realize you had forgotten yourself. And Capricorn, this person carries something that belongs to your story, not ownership, not control, but a direction you were never meant to find alone. As if they hold a map that aligns with a part of your destiny you've only sensed in fragments. You've done so much of your life pushing through doors that would not budge. This time, the door opens inward, softly, easily, in a way that almost startles you, because it requires no force. That's how you know it's right. Right people don't demand a version of you that hurts to hold. They draw out the part of you that has been waiting for room to breathe. And as their energy enters your world, something in you begins to expand. A space you didn't know was tight starts to loosen. A future you never dared to imagine becomes a little more visible. Don't rush to name what this connection is. It doesn't need a label to be real. Just let it unfold the way dawn unfolds across a quiet sky. Slow, certain, golden, because what they carry and what their presence unlocks in you is guiding you toward a life you can finally step into without hesitation. Capricorn, I want you to breathe for a moment and really feel where you are standing now. It is not the same place you stood years ago, not the same weight, not the same silence. There is a different light gathering around you, almost like dawn testing the edges of the sky before it rises. And maybe you haven't fully noticed it yet. Change rarely introduces itself with a shout. It comes in whispers, in small shifts, in the quiet certainty that something is turning in your favor, even if your eyes haven't caught up to it. For so long, you carried your battles in private. You stitched your own wounds when no one was watching. You rebuilt yourself piece by piece while the world assumed you were fine. You learned how to rise without applause, how to endure without needing witnesses. But there comes a point in every story where what was formed in the dark must be revealed in the light. Not for validation, not for revenge, but because the truth of who you have become can no longer stay hidden inside you. You've grown in ways most people will never understand. You've earned strength the hard way, not through praise, but through pain. And that kind of strength has a way of announcing itself, even when you stay quiet. People who once overlooked you will feel it first. They'll notice the shift before they can explain it. An ease in your presence, a confidence that doesn't need to be spoken, a clarity in your eyes that wasn't there before. It is not arrogance, it is recognition, an acknowledgement from life itself that you survived a season meant to break you and somehow you rose taller, and because of that, blessings won't come to you quietly anymore. Your journey demanded more than that. Your story deserves to be seen. There is something profoundly healing about that moment, the moment when the world finally witnesses what you had to carry alone. Not to pity you, not to praise you, but to understand the magnitude of your becoming. And Capricorn, you are entering a time when doors won't open halfway. They will swing wide as if they were waiting for you all along. Opportunities will meet you with less resistance. People who never took you seriously will fall, silent, not because you proved them wrong, but because your growth is undeniable. This is what happens when someone remains faithful to their own path. Life shifts to honor that kind of courage. And as this recognition begins to unfold around you, you may feel a strange mixture of gratitude and disbelief, as if you're standing in a life that feels familiar and yet completely new. Let yourself feel it. Let yourself receive it. You've walked through years of holding everything in. Now, life is inviting you to exhale into who you were always meant to be. And as you step into that light, something else quietly rises beside it. Something that has been waiting for the exact moment your spirit was ready to hold it without fear. Stay close, Capricorn. Everything you've prepared for is beginning to find its way to you. Capricorn, before we close tonight, I want you to place one hand over your heart for a moment. Feel that steady rhythm, that quiet strength. That is the sound of someone who refused to give up on themselves, even when no one was watching. And maybe that's the real miracle here, not the wealth, not the opportunities, not even the recognition that's rising around you, but the fact that you found your way back to yourself, again and again, in the dark, in the silence, in the moments no one will ever know about but you. You've become the turning point of your own story. And now, life is answering you in ways that may surprise you at first, softly at the beginning, then suddenly, as if everything that was once delayed finally remembers where it belongs. So, if something in you stirred tonight, if a single word touched the part of you that's been waiting, whisper it into the comments. Tell the universe I receive what is meant for me. Say it with your chest. Say it with your spirit. Say it because this moment was written with you in mind. And if this message felt like home, if it felt like someone finally saw the truth you've been carrying, stay close. Subscribe. Be here for the next chapter, because your story isn't done, not even close. There is more coming for you, more guidance, more clarity, more reminders that you are not walking this path alone. The Capricorn journey is long, but it is holy, and it is unfolding exactly as it should. So, rest tonight, knowing this: you are stepping into a life that recognizes you, and the next message is already on its way. Good night, Capricorn. We rise again soon.